Hello, welcome to Miss Peepers Reading Corner. I'm Katrina, aka Miss Peepers. Let's talk about books. Specifically, we're talking about banned books this month. What books have been banned? Why are they banned? What brings about challenges? And should you read these books? My goal with this series is education, to let you know what books have been banned and let you make your own decision about what books you should be able to read. So without further ado, let's get into it. Today we're going to be discussing, I never have covers, so I'll put a picture up here, The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. Thanks to the Hulu adaptation of the same name, I suspect this is fairly familiar to viewers, but just in case, this book is set in an unspecified future United States. The government has been overthrown, the Constitution has been thrown out, and the new rulers of this country, which is now called Gilead, have set up a Christian-based dictatorship. In this society, men are considered the dominant gender, and women are relegated to essentially a serving class. There's been some sort of medical event that is not really expanded upon a whole lot in this story. This is not about the science fiction, but rather about the society. Very few women are now able to conceive children for whatever reason, and as a result of that, many married couples cannot have children of their own, and so they employ what are called handmaids, who are women who are fertile, who are able to produce children, and those women essentially have that couple's children for them. But because this is a highly misogynist society, those women who become handmaids don't choose that life, it is chosen for them. So essentially these women are enslaved and placed in a household and are forced to have sex in a ritualistic sort of way with both the man, but with the wife present, and the intent is to conceive a child. Pleasure is not part of it for anyone involved, and many times the wife who cannot have a child is resentful of the handmaid who can. And so there are a lot of really toxic dynamics in this society. Our main character is a handmaid called Fred. Fred is the name of the husband of the couple that she is serving at that time. And we don't know her real name. Her real name is lost. This is presented as a manuscript that she has left behind during her time in Fred's household. Now, this book was published in 1986, and one thing that Margaret Atwood has said in interviews is that, of course, the story is fictional, but she did not make up any instances of oppression or descriptions that she puts in here. Everything comes in some way from something that has happened somewhere in the world before, and she's brought it all into one society to really underscore the terrible things that have happened to women over the centuries, but also still in some places happen today. There are a lot of content warnings for this book. As I've already said, there is rape, there is sexual assault in this book, and there is a lot of just general abuse. Fred has a miserable existence, and we also see the things that are done by the government. We see executions, we see people taking their own lives as a result of this oppression. So definitely worth checking those content warnings before you go in, because it is a heavy read. But let's get into why this has been banned. Of course, the sex is a big reason. There is explicit sex in here. I would say it's not as explicit as some romance novels that I'm aware of, but there is some explicit sex in here. There is rape in here, like I said. It is upsetting. So that is obviously a very common challenge reason. There was also a challenge referring to themes of despair, which I think refers to the discussions of suicide. Fred comes to the conclusion that the handmaid that stayed in the room before her in Fred's household, that she took her own life. That's a theme that comes up a few times. So I suspect that that's what they meant by that. To me, that's more of a content warning than a reason to pull it off of the shelf. A particularly upsetting challenge from my perspective in 1990 called out that because the main character is a woman, young men cannot relate to her. To which I say, if we only read books about people who are exactly like us, what would be the point of that? And are they not allowing young women to read books about male main characters? This makes zero sense to me. I'm not going to go on a big tangent about this, although I certainly could, as I'm sure many of you could as well. But I will simply say that I think it's important for both children and adults of all genders to consider the experiences of not only their own gender, but also others. And this is how we build empathy, and this is how we learn about other experiences. This kind of comment also suggests that sexual assault and rape are a women's problem, a women's issue, and that men don't need to worry about it, which is completely inaccurate. If men are doing it, they need to worry about it. They should stop. But I also want to point out that people of all genders can be victims of sexual violence. And so maybe a young man could relate to this story for the most unfortunate of reasons. And the fact that a challenger is seeing only the gender of the main character as a reason to read or not to read a book is so closed-minded. However, on a slightly more amusing note in my mind, in 2006, there was a challenge of this book as a reading assignment in a high school class. Because the book is sexually explicit and offensive to Christians. It is sexually explicit in places, not without reason, but it is. It's only offensive to Christians if you believe that Atwood is talking about every single Christian in this book, which I personally do not. This shows the extremes that religion, any religion, can go to become oppressive, and Christianity is one of those religions that has been oppressive to women in the past, and somewhat in the present at times as well. But that's not the amusing part. The amusing part is this. The alternative book that was given as an assignment in place of this sexually explicit book was Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. I'm literally about to film this one. We're going to talk about Brave New World in a different video, and it's going to be a little bit awkward if my schedule, which is not in my head but rather on a spreadsheet, puts the Brave New World video first. But regardless, in another video this month, we're going to be talking about Brave New World by Aldous Huxley. And the setting of this book is in a dystopian society as well, in which one is encouraged to have multiple sexual partners. And there is in fact an orgy scene in here. It's not as explicit perhaps as Handmaid's Tale, only because the participants in said orgy are hopped up on drugs, and so it all just kind of becomes a blur at some point. But yeah, glad you replaced your sex book with a non-sex book with a much better alternative. And this kind of thing makes me think we have a male author and a male main character versus a female author and a female main character. I don't want to sound paranoid, but I can't help but think that that could be the reason that this book is okay and this one is not. Alternately, and I don't know the story behind it, it could be a smart-ass teacher who was like, okay, I'll give you a different book. This one's fine. So I don't know how that happened. I don't know what the full scenario is there, but that just made me chuckle. Unfortunately, the parent in question who challenged Handmaid's Tale was not satisfied with just having an alternative that parents could choose for their children or not, but rather pushed harder to get it taken off of the syllabus entirely, but they were not successful. I think it's okay to provide alternatives for books that are difficult or have difficult topics. However, taking that reading experience and the learnings from a book like this away from every child just because you don't want your child reading that for whatever reason that is where I draw the line. Let me know, have you read Handmaid's Tale? Or, and I'll ask you this in the other video as well, Brave New World? Let me know what you think, And either way, I will see you in the next one.